Something's happening here, and what it is very clear. Scream used to be the pinnacle, and Spyglass said we don't want that anymore. It's time we say to stop. Hey, what's that sound? The Scream franchise is going down. We see that Spyglass took it right on the proverbial ass when they fire Melissa Barrera because she wanted Palestinian people to be safe. And we say that stop. Hey, what's that sound? The Scream franchise is going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? The Scream franchise is going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? The Scream franchise is going down. Scream 7 is the hopefully last entry in the super long-running franchise that stretches back all the way to December of 1996, where Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, as well as Matthew Lillard, and so many others, so many iconic characters, so many memorable lines, directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson. Yeah, we've gone to Scream 2, we've gone to Scream 3. The whole thing was put on ice for 11 years. Scream 4 wasn't all that successful, and then we had Scream 5, Scream 6, that I really didn't care for, but a lot of people did. But then, well, Spyglass said, we see all that success that the first two of this possible trilogy had, so we want to take that and smashy, 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 smashy. Oh, Melissa Barrera, you want to stand up for Palestinian people? No, you get the fucking boot. Wait, we didn't expect that we were going to get a whole bunch of backlash and people were going to possibly boycott this thing or basically slander our names. And by the way, to every Spyglass executive, every movie executive that had anything to do with the decisions to fire Melissa Barrera for wanting innocent Palestinian people to not be mowed down in a cleansing, and that's what it fucking is. Fuck y'all. I hope you don't have a goddamn day of peace. Though I do want to say about Christopher Landon, director Christopher Landon, he didn't deserve the death threats that he got. So for people that gave him death threats, that's fucking bullshit. I will get to Scream 7 eventually, but I am on my soapbox right now. Melissa Barrera's character Sam, who did make the pants too long, wasn't a great character. I love Melissa Barrera. What a talent. She really should have had better success with Your Monster. That was a lot of fun. She is getting projects, and she is a bright, funny, dramatic, and gorgeous actress. She also stands up for really good causes. So you may be wondering why the hell I decided to review this. I'm a completionist. And also I decided that, you know what? Melissa Barrera has her people stand up for her. I even asked people to send me Palestinian donation links that are legit to put in the description and promote them, but I got no takers, so whatever. That being said, Melissa Barrera was supposed to, apparently, rumor and innuendo, was supposed to embrace being Billy Loomis's daughter and become Ghostface, and then Jenna Ortega's character was going to take care of her. There we go. That was a rumor. I mean, I don't know if that was actually going to happen. That seemed to be where they were trending. Wasn't exactly how I would have gone with this whole thing, but it is what it is. It was pretty much about the only direction they could have gone. Now, I did really like Scream 5, or 5 Scream, or whatever the hell it is. Scream 6, while I appreciated the different setting, to me just really wasn't all that great, wasn't that witty, and too many people survived too many things that even by horror movie standards was pretty ridiculous. But again, I own every single own every single goddamn Scream movie except 6. I don't own 6. I was going to get it for completionist's sake, but the first Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time. Well, next to Psycho. Psycho is a horror movie. Scream isn't my 4 favorites on Letterboxd. It's never going to leave. I love that movie from the time I saw it in theaters. And even Scream 2, it's somewhat inferior sequel, but at least by the 3rd act. And Scream 3 that had its issues, mostly due to studios being a little bit weird about the Columbine tragedy, justifiably so, but a little bit too much. Scream 4, the second best of the franchise, and 5 and 6, I talked about that. Scream 7, by the way, was doomed to fail, even if they didn't have all that bullshit going on with Melissa Barrera. So justice for Melissa Barrera. Most importantly, justice for the Palestinian people that just want to live. I mean, my God. But let's go back to Scream 6. I will get to the review eventually. This is going to be a different review than I usually do, even though I did get fired up, admittedly, during the Scream 6 video where it was really long. This will probably be longer than that. In Scream 6, they lowballed Neve Campbell to where she didn't appear. They referenced her, but that was it. They lowballed her, then they screwed over Melissa Barrera. Jenna Ortega walked out in, solidarity, and I am not going to knock anybody in this cast for going back to it if they needed a payday. I'm not knocking that. I don't blame Melissa Barrera for putting her principles over profits. Good for her, but it's Hollywood. They got to find a way to make a living. That's just what it comes down to. But I hope that Melissa Barrera can have a great long career, and Jenna Ortega as well. Courtney Cox apparently came back for a couple $1 million. Neve Campbell got a $7 million payment, and apparently, now I'll kind of sort of get to it, Kevin Williamson was brought back to write the thing. He wrote the first 4 Screams. Yeah, let's just say this much, that Kevin Williamson, outside of that, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, as far as movies that he wrote, Sick wasn't really all that good. But he also directed Teaching Mrs. Tingle. This is the second time he stepped in the director's chair. And Dawson's Creek, he helped create that. So, yeah, he knows what the fuck he's doing. There was the Cursed movie, which was terrible. Very terrible. I mean, then again, that was studio interference, and you could even tell Wes Craven was frustrated making that damn thing. The following, Stalker, I barely know her. I've had stalkers, that's really not fun to say. Or a joke about Vampire Diaries and Scream TV, and it was also written by Guy Busick, not Big Bully Busick, and the story was by James Vanderbilt. Allegedly, there's a story. I don't know where the fuck the story is, but speaking of Kevin Williamson, he convinced Neve Campbell to come back. The studio had to give her a big payday and respect to her because she deserved that for being, basically, besides Gale, the only OG character that's still fucking alive because they killed off David Arquette in Scream 5. But she said, I'll come back, but you have to direct the thing also, write and direct the thing. That's fair. Wes Craven has unfortunately been dead for 11 years, and they assembled a team. They assembled, again, Courtney Cox, she was there. She got an executive producer credit, so did Neve Campbell. The budget went up to like $45 million, which, by the way, is the biggest of any of the franchise. The biggest one before that was Scream 4, that cost $40 million. And I wrote down some facts and figures and stuff like that because I'm going to go long here and I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this video. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this video, and then people are probably going to be pissed that maybe I'm not talking as much about Scream 7 as I should. But this is a longer form video because this was insulting, even by bad Scream standards. Whatever entry you feel was the worst in the franchise, a vast majority of people are going to feel the same way. But even if we just take all that stuff with Melissa Barrera and we put it over here where we remember it, but we don't factor it into this particular production. Scream 7 was bad. Scream 7 was really bad. It felt like a streaming movie. It was filmed and looks like shit. The kills were absolutely terrible. And all the characters felt like they barely felt rice paper thin. I mean, you have some talent here. Isabel May, who played the daughter, Tatum, yes, named after Rose McGowan's character. You have Mindy Meeks, Martin, and you have Chad Meeks as well. You have Chad, played by Mason Gooding. I hope he's nothing like his dad. He doesn't seem to be. And Jasmine Savoy Brown, who I think has great comedic timing, I think looks good, and I would love to, see her in more projects. We have Anna Camp, who looks like she's about in her late 20s, and despite the fact she's in her early 40s, she's been good and stuff. She plays a character named Jessica, who's a neighbor. There's Mark Evans, played by Joe McHale. And then we have McKenna Grace, who apparently is just busy as hell. She's basically the younger Glenn Powell. Not that Glenn Powell's old, but McKenna Grace, Regretting You, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, this, There are like probably 2 other projects I'm missing. And it's just hard to believe. You look at Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and then you look now, and it's like, I guess it's the blonde hair. I don't know. It's just, she looks just so different. And I love that McKenna Grace is getting work, and McKenna Grace has shown a panache for understanding horror and understanding things like that, understanding projects. Michelle Rudolph or Randolph is in this. Jimmy Tatro, they're in the beginning of this movie. Celeste O'Connor, who was in Madam Web and actually is a pretty accomplished actress, like even as young as she is. Let's just ignore Madam Web. Ethan Embry, yes, somebody that was in a lot of comedies and some stuff. I don't know if he was necessarily seen as a heartthrob, but he was somebody that I do remember from my youth, where, he was playing one of those troubled youths and stuff like that. And also Roger Jackson is back as Ghostface. So, yeah, that's pretty much a rundown on the cast there. So let's basically get to what this is. Remember what happened in New York? No, you don't. Shut up. They reference it. Actually, they reference it to the point where they are slamming you in the back of the head with nostalgia like a sack of bricks. I mean, they literally are just slamming you in the goddamn head. It's like they're literally taking a battle axe to you with nostalgia. That is the theme of this. Nostalgia and trauma dealt with all the subtlety, again, of the aforementioned sack of bricks to the goddamn back of the head. So, we do get a needle drop of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds' Red Right Hand. I would have popped for that at least. And it's nice because that's pretty much the only song that a lot of people, like movie fans know them for. I know they've done other music. I don't even know if the group's still together. But now we have a new Ghostface with blackjack and access to AI. Because they play on the... This is what I'm just going to get into because it's not necessarily, much of a spoiler. All the theories of what they said about Stu and other people possibly able to come back, they play with that in the movie. I will say that much. That's about it. But they do have a theme of AI that really doesn't get utilized all that much. And then when they explain why it was used, it was even dumber than I could have come up with. And Kevin Williamson, look, teaching Mrs. Tingle was not a good project. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It was a standard movie. But also proved that maybe he shouldn't direct, he should just write. And this is another one where I don't think he came, or, went out with bad intentions to make a terrible movie. But what he ended up making was a movie that was so goddamn bland and stock, it doesn't feel like a Scream movie. And even though Scream would make fun of nostalgia, do meta commentary, and have some nice, neat little ways to wrap that around, with Wes Craven dead after Scream 4, the clock was ticking on. Now, the team behind Ready or Not that did Scream 5, they did fine. There were moments that didn't quite work, but I felt they did a good job honoring Wes Craven's legacy. Scream 6, less so, but I may have to rewatch Scream 6. Maybe I won't be as harsh towards Scream 6 now, knowing how bad it can be, because this is easily, without question, the worst entry of the franchise. It's the laziest entry of the franchise. It's fucking terrible to watch. It is terrible to look at. Neve Campbell is one of my favorites. She is timeless. She is ageless. But her Sydney does not feel like an actual, doesn't feel like much of a character arc. There are brief moments where it seems like they might try to come alive with it. The kills are terrible. The reveal is terrible. Everything about this movie just feels so... It just feels stupid. And again, poor Christopher Landon getting death threats. Christopher Landon, by the way, look up his filmography and check out some of his films and send him some nice messages. And if you send him death threats, apologize to him. So, the stuff with Melissa Barrera shouldn't happen. The script rewrites, by the way, cost $500,000. You know how you could have avoided that and avoided paying Neve Campbell $7 million? And I'm not saying that Neve Campbell didn't deserve $7 million. She deserved a big payday for Scream 6 and should have gotten a big payday for this. But you could have avoided all the bad publicity, all the bad press, by making sure that you didn't fire Melissa Barrera for not wanting Palestinian people to be killed. Also, abolish ICE. You stand with ICE, fuck you. The whole thing is, now it is exactly what it made fun of. It made fun of cliches, it made fun of nostalgia, it made fun of meta-commentary, it made fun of how slashers almost feel commercialized and how they feel like just studios are churning them out. That is what this basically is. It is not a Scream movie. It is essentially a movie that just ends up being exactly what it set out to mock, and it's shameful. I'm going to get into some facts and figures about this before I get into any of the spoilers. So I'll do this when I get to spoilers. So Scream. Let's talk about Scream back in 1996. I've seen this movie more times than I care to count. $14 million budget. You could probably double that for today's dollars. $6.3 million opening. Okay, not great because, granted, the horror market was oversaturated and people weren't sure about slashers, but it had legs more than Carrie Von Erich, especially since Carrie Von Erich had been dead for about 3.5 years. $103 million U.S. gross. $173 million worldwide gross. Successful. Wes Craven was back in the saddle. And I know Rotten Tomatoes gets a bad rap, but the critic and audience score is 78 and 80% respectively. Letterboxd score is an average of 4.0. And I rank this as the best. I think this is the best Scream movie. And then we go to Scream 2 that literally, it had to have been greenlit before, like, Scream even got out of theaters. And they churned this motherfucker out fast. Now, it looked glossy at times. Courtney Cox always had questionable hair in movies like this. The bangs in Scream 3 being the worst, but $24 million budget. $32.9 million opening because the people were there and they were ready. They were ready to make sure this happened. $101.3 million U.S. gross. $172.3 million worldwide gross. Okay, about on the same, a couple million, whatever. It is what it is. Had a big opening. And the Rotten Tomatoes score, they were 83 and 70 or 59%. So audiences did not care for this. Now, until we get to about the car accident part, and then that part, I feel like that is where things came to a stop, ironically. And I'd like the killer reveal and stuff like that, but something about it did feel like some of the magic was gone. Don't worry, Scream 3 did not get that back on track, as the aforementioned Columbine tragedy and all that. $40 million budget. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that Scream 4 cost more. This costs the same. It had a $34.7 million US or $1 million opening. And that ended up only translating to $89.1 million for the US gross, which is not great. And a $161.8 million worldwide gross. So the worldwide audience was there, but the US audience was starting to wane a little bit. So yes, it made double its budget. Double your fun, double mint. Yes, hello, Sydney, and all that. Critic audience score 45 and 38%, 2.9 average. By the way, forgot to mention the Scream 3 or Scream 2 average, 3.3. So down, but still above what Scream 3 had. Scream 4, $40 million budget. Last movie that Wes Craven directed before his untimely death. $18.6 million opening, not great. This is also when they had the weird lens flare-like stuff that didn't exactly work, that kind of got a little bit... I gotta watch Scream 4 again, if it's on a streaming service I have. I think it's on Paramount, so I don't have Paramount, but the whole point... I gotta pop the Blu-ray in. But I like Scream 4, even with the lens flare stuff that it had. But a $38.1 million U.S. haul, not great. It did make 97.2, 97.3. That's a station, by the way, here, so I always go with that. That's a worldwide total. So it didn't do as great as Scream 3 and put things on ice. Now, you could argue maybe they were going to do a fifth one had this been more successful. I don't know. Wes Craven, unfortunately, did pass away due to brain cancer, but the audience and critic score, or critic and audience score, 61 and 57%. That's really low, but 3.4 Letterboxd average, second best to me. Scream 5, $24 million budget, $30 million opening, cool. $81.6 million gross, not great. This is after the pandemic, though, so movies are going to streaming a lot quicker, video on demand and streaming. But $137.7 million gross worldwide, 76 and 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, 3.2 Letterboxd average, and third best. So to me, Scream 6 being the worst entry, at least until Scream 7, I understand why people like Scream 6. I don't mind that it deviated from some things, but it utilized its setting, but didn't utilize it as well as it should have. Like, there was so much missed potential with this whole thing. So it did cost $35 million. It made $44.4 million in, for the U.S., or for the opening rather, and made $108.3 million for the grand thing, for the grand total in the U.S. $166.5 million for the worldwide haul. Okay, audience score, by the way, the highest actually of any of them, 90%. Critic score was 77%, 3.4. Letterbox average, and so far now, as of now, $45 to $50 million budget for this, which again, $500,000 for the rewrite, $7 million for Neve Campbell, even though Neve Campbell is easily worth that. If you should have had her, 3.5 for 6, 3.5 for 7, but no, they couldn't do that. And then they came back hat in hand. The Rotten Tomatoes score, when I last checked, was 41% from the critics and 2.5 and dropping for Letterboxd on, among people and stuff like that. So I'm going to get into spoilers here in a second, but Scream 7 as a property feels so manufactured, and Ghostface isn't fearsome. Any attempt at gore falls flat. And any attempts at humor, there's like maybe 2 times you might chuckle a little bit. But as a Scream fan, this felt like an insult. This felt like a major goddamn insult. So I am going to get into spoilers. This is a long review already. But that being said, it's in theaters right now. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. There you go. So, we open at the Mocker House, where all the murders happened. And where the party happened in Scream 5. And Mikey Madsen. It's just so hard to believe Mikey Madsen went from that and then went to Honora just a couple of years later. It's incredible. It's incredible. Demi Moore should have won for The Substance, but I digress. That's where, they reference that. That was there in the first movie and then in this one. And okay, cool. All right. We got it as like almost a historical thing or a B&B or whatever the hell it is. And we got, what the fuck were their names? We got Jimmy Tatro and Michelle Randolph. Randolph. They played just a couple where the guy was really into like the Ghostface stuff and knew all about that. And he had taped outline and fake blood and all this and stab franchise stuff because, they had the movie within the movie thing. And then they had a motion capture, Ghostface was doing this. But then he dressed up like Ghostface, and she ended up, punching him. They're smart, but they're not quite smart enough. And then he noticed, oh shit, wait, this motion capture thing is moving more than it should. There's Ghostface there. Now, we're not sure which Ghostface this is, because there are 2, by the way. But they end up getting killed. He gets stabbed repeatedly and stabbed to the goddamn head. She tries to go up the steps. Instead of going out the front door, haha, do you get it? It doesn't work this time. The magic is gone. The magic is evaporated. She ends up shoving Ghostface off. They fall. It could either be, it could be one of 2. So they fall, hit, and then suddenly she falls off the chandelier right onto Ghostface, stabbing. Somehow doesn't hurt Ghostface anymore. Ghostface had a can of gas and burned the whole place, including the girl down. Burned the Mocker House down, so if they do a Scream 8, God forbid if they do, they are going to have completely new sets and everything. I very much doubt they're going to do Scream 8. Not that I don't think this won't have a big haul in the opening weekend and maybe even the second weekend, but I do not think that they are going to be able to take the savage beating from the critics and the feedback and the fact that, there are, boycott Scream 6 or 7 things. Should have boycott Scream 6 until they got a better concept. But boycott Scream 7, free Palestinian stuff, free Palestine. Again, geopolitical conflicts, like whatever, like there's just, you bring people together because I think we all can agree innocent people shouldn't be mowed down and cleansing, especially when you have a country, Israel, that would, you think the people would not want to be part of that, but I digress. Yeah, the opening at the Mocker House is what it is. Nostalgia heavy and stupid. We go right to Tatum having been her boyfriend sneak through her window, like, oh, it occurred to me, I never snuck through your window. Wink, wink, nod, nod. again, sack of bricks at the back of the goddamn head. So, and look, I get it. I get what they're doing because it's supposed to remind Sydney of stuff she went through. She's protective and everything. Her husband, Mark, is a cop. I would have liked to have seen her hook up with Patrick Dempsey, but it is what it is. They had to eventually introduce a husband, considering she had kids. And she had kids at least in the fifth one. My question, though, is... my question is since Scream 4 came out in 2011, when did she have kids? Did she have kids by that point and she was doing a book tour and the husband was taking care of them? Because Tatum's supposed to be at least a teenager at this point, and it's only been 15 years since Scream 4, but whatever, I guess I'm thinking too much into it. A terrible opening, by the way. Even though the actors tried, I would argue that was probably the weakest beyond the third one. Liv Schreiber wanted to be killed off. Don't blame him. But basically, to set the scene, she wants to protect her daughter, but doesn't tell her daughter about much of her past. Her daughter's also got those friends, McKenna Grace and Celeste O'Connor. There's a weird guy named Lucas. The kid, the poor kid, he has a face made for horror, and I mean that with respect, but he's got a mother, Jessica. They're the neighbors, and Jessica doesn't want Lucas to be all that obsessed with Sydney, and obsessed with the stab stuff, and apologizes, and, well, no, my son doesn't know anything about my past, because I had an abusive ex and stuff like that, but I don't have to worry about that abusive ex anymore. Red flag neon sign and everything. I might as well tell you what I am right now. Yeah, Jessica's one of the killers, by the way, just so you know. Since I'm in the spoiler section, I can say that. And by the way, not a very good job deviating from that, everything. But, yeah, Tatum, Ben... it's a relationship of convenience. The convenience is we are going to get Ben killed at one point. So, during the production of whatever the fuck, Tatum is doing acting, and she even asked her mom, have you done stage acting? Oh, you did that? Oh, not since college. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Remember Jerry O'Connell? Whatever happened to him? So anyway, just really hard to believe Timothy Oliphant was in that. And he's had such a hell of a career since. But that being said, Mark is the police chief there, having some garage reconstruction stuff in the house with the clear plastic stuff and everything to keep dust out and whatever. Gee, I wonder if that's going to factor into some killings and everything. So, yeah, for a while we seemingly forget that we're doing a Scream movie because, I mean, and I know we're supposed to set the scene a bit and not have it where, Ghostface is doing all the killing, but still, it's ridiculous. So, during this production of Peter Pan, whatever the fuck, where Hannah Grace is playing Tinkerbell or something, Tatum is playing a dog but keeps stumbling, and then there's this point where, we're gonna lift McKenna Grace up and go around and everything, and she's going to get her heel caught in the dress and stuff like that. There is also kind of this sweet moment between Ben and Tatum where she says, tell me one thing that you like about me or whatever, and that he likes the way she looks at him. She, if he makes her laugh, he'll think about it when he gets home and he'll laugh again. It actually, and I wish I had the quote. I mean, I took some notes because it wasn't all that busy, but it actually was a kind of a sweet moment. I'm like, if we leaned more into that and actually tried to do some world building there, it would have been fine. But the problem is not going all that well. And suddenly, while this production of whatever the fuck is going on, Sydney gets a call and starts recording. And it's from somebody that's Ghostface. But then this time, video calling. And suddenly, Stu is on the screen. Yep, Matthew Lillard makes a return. All scarred up and everything, even though he had the TV smashed over his face. There were the theories that Stu Macher was still going to be alive somehow. Going full on ridiculous. Couldn't bring Billy back because he got shot in the head. But Stu, yeah, he could survive a TV electrocuting him. So that being said, it's clear that it is some kind of deep fake thing. So they're using AI. So somebody wants to bring Sydney's trauma back and make her think that it's Stu. Now there is this whole little side thing about Stu's body was never brought to the morgue, or somebody took the paperwork and wanted to make it seem that way. But Stu calls and basically says, I'm at the high school and I'm going to kill your daughter. Well, he doesn't kill a daughter, but he ends up killing one guy, Andrew, I think was his name. I don't actually remember the guy's name. And guts McKenna Grace while she's strapped up on the goddamn. McKenna Grace just cannot stay alive in horror movies. What a upstart, not even an upstart. What a fine actress she is for taking on roles like this. Bless her, and I wish her nothing but success. But Ben can't go with him because can't go with Sydney and Tatum and Mark because they're gonna try and make an escape. Get away because kind of smart and everything. Even though getting away has never really worked in these movies, why learn from past experiences? But Tatum basically says just because you can't trust people doesn't mean people can't be trusted. And before that, there was actually this one line from the teacher that I actually thought was Zachary Quinto at first, but it wasn't. The actor was fine. He wasn't really featured all that much. But like David Warner being the theater director in Scream 2 for no goddamn reason, lending more credence to that sequel than it deserved. You're Sidney Prescott's daughter, the theater director said. You should channel some of that fire. More on that in a bit. So, they get back to the house. Cops do a sweep and everything and figure out, okay, nothing's going on. And instantly, they're packing up. Tatum and Sydney are going to take off. And suddenly we see the attic door and we see somebody drop down. Now, somehow all the cops disappeared. Mark ends up getting, even though they kind of gain the advantage a little bit, Mark gets sent down the goddamn steps. Also, they have a panic room, because why wouldn't they have a panic room just in case this happens? But they're going to escape through the hallway to go get the father. It's fine, whatever. So, they go to look for the father. The father, by the way, has vanished completely. It's not the father, by the way. You are not the father. He tackles Ghostface. And there you go. We have that going on. We have also, basically they battle into the driveway. They battle into the yard. Sydney takes a birdhouse and smashes it over Ghostface's head. And he goes into the road and gets hit by a car that it turns out was driven by Gale Weathers, woman drivers. Am I right, lads? And also Mindy and Chad are there. They are their understudies, but Mindy really wants to take over and take news into a news direction, as it were. And who was Ghostface? Oh my God, he's dead. We're 40 minutes in. It was, who the hell's that guy? I saw him at the coffee shop because, oh yeah, Sydney owns a coffee shop, and there was this weird guy named Carl that just happened to be a weird guy. It turns out he escaped from a mental institution. Oh shit. We have a mental institution nearby? We should have studied this place. So they go there while Tatum's trying to be protected. Tatum goes along with some friends, by the way, after Chad and Mindy basically talk talk over the plans and stuff like that and coming up with things. And Mindy's still all more like Randy, where even Chad's getting a little bit annoyed. But they assemble all the people and they're going to go to this bar. It turns out that Chloe Celeste O'Connor's character, her family owns a bar and they're going to go there for a bit. Meanwhile, Gale and Sydney are going to the mental institution because they heard about the Stu Monker house burning down. Well, Gale did, and she's like, my Sydney sense was tingling. I could say a lot about that, but I respect Neve Campbell, so I'm just going to move on. She is beautiful, though. Always has been. From the first Scream to now. One of my first horror crushes, to be perfectly honest. Got to be careful saying the word horror. So, Carl, it turns out, actually was part of, a patient at this institution. He had murdered 3 women, but got released 2 weeks ago. Also, you may recognize the guy running the goddamn thing, Ethan Embry, either in makeup or he was in a very bad fire. I'm not sure. But that being said, Ethan Embry was in this. You can tell by the eyes, but Jesus, they did a good job with that makeup or those looks. As this is going on, We cut back to the house, and Mark, even though he's okay, even though he got slashed in the arm, he senses, oh, something's going on here. You know, there's noises in the house, in the construction area. I told you we were going to come back to that. And he gets wrapped up in a plastic thing and stabbed a lot. And it's Ghostface. And as it looks like Mark's dead, we cut to Nick Cave in the Bad Seas, red right hand. And there we go. And by the way, we've gotten a couple more, you know, video calls from Stu. It's not Stu, by the way. But as, you know, they're all gathered at the bar, they're discussing stuff and everything. I really wanted pizza, so actually this movie inspired me to get pizza from a local pizza joint. So thank you very much for helping the community even a little bit. Pan pizza is the best, especially if you get it done right. That being said, to the point where actually Chloe threw away a pizza that, yes, looked a little black, but there was enough good stuff that you could have saved from that. You wasted pizza. She kind of deserved to die because of that. But Ben and Tatum leave. Ghostface is going around and killing people. This is just so dumb. Chad is there, Mindy's there, Chloe's there, Lucas is there. Seems like Lucas and Chloe might get together, but don't worry about that goddamn shit. Ben and Tatum are in the Jeep, and suddenly she opens up a laptop that just happens to be there and sees Ben and the Stu stuff with the same thing, and he's just making it to... He just wanted to see if he could make it. Saying off all the red flags that he's the killer. He's not the killer, by the way, but whatever, it's fine. Doesn't matter. Bar scene, let's get back to that. Chad ends up getting stabbed because Chloe thinks, oh my god, it's Ghostface, but no, it's a fake out. Weird fake out, by the way. Looked like he was dressed like Ghostface for some reason, just without the mask. And then it seems like Chad got stabbed pretty severely, like he got either slashed or whatever, or stabbed in, I don't know. Mindy got slashed in the gut. Didn't get stabbed as much as she did in Scream 6 and survived. But you think, okay, Mindy and Chad are dead. They're expendable. Everybody's expendable. And then, even though Chloe does fight back with a meat mallet and stuff like that, she ends up succumbing to injuries, getting, you know, killed, stabbed, you know, with broken glass everywhere. Scream 7's a mess, and we just don't care. And Lucas also then ends up, he's stabbed also trying to save Chloe a little bit earlier. And then he gets impaled on the bar tap thing where he starts spraying stuff out. And I guess that's supposed to be funny. But, yeah, we get all that. So Ben got hit over the head with the laptop. Tatum escapes and is running and freaking out. Looks around, doesn't see, and suddenly Ben is there with a head injury. I'm a poet and I don't even know it, but my feet show because they're Longfellows. But Ben is like, you hit me in that pretty good, but I'm going to protect you. Don't worry. And then Ben instantly gets stabbed. And then Tatum, in a fury, throws him through the, you know, tackles whatever Ghostface is through the goddamn, you know, department store window. By the way, there is a curfew, because we have to go back to that whole thing, even though I don't think a curfew would work in 2026. Hell, shelter in place didn't work in the pandemic. We saw how that worked. I worked during the pandemic. I know. But even though the alarm got set off, and even though she easily tackled Ghostface and probably could have picked up a solid object, and I know this is Horror Movie 101, and bashed him in the head. Nope, didn't do that. Ran off. Sydney and Gail decided to do an interview thing during this bar scene, by the way. I'm kind of bouncing around, but Tatum's where she is. But not before she sees Sydney and Gail doing the interview they always wanted to do, and Gail starts to, you know, kind of egg this thing on because she wants to make sure that Stu calls. It's not Stu, but wants to make sure Stu calls. To trace the phone call. They can only trace it on a live feed, I guess. So everything's going on, whatever, it's fine. Stu calls, and it turns out, you know, things ain't exactly going all that great for Tatum. Tatum ends up in the coffee shop's office and pushes the rack and pushes the desk there because Sydney is guiding her on a cell phone because of bad signals. She has to stand in one place on the road and says, here's what you're going to do. You're going to grab this guy in the safe, the date's your birthday, and you're going to pop through the goddamn wall. And she does, even though she's like, I can't do this, I can't do this. You managed to tackle Ghostface and do this stuff and everything. I'm not like you. No, whatever. Anyway, manages to shoot Ghostface, gets out. You need to shoot him in the head. Well, doesn't do that quick enough. So Ghostface comes back. She's about to get out, and then suddenly another Ghostface. So it's two Ghostfaces. One calls Sydney, and you got to come back home. So here's the final showdown. Oh, by the way, we then see AI cameras, or cameras show AI images of Stu, of Scott, of Laurie Metcalf, who was Billy's mother, of, Roman, Scott Foley from Scream 3, and also Dewey. We're just going to ignore Scream 4's killers, and 5 and whatever, but I digress. And now we're going to go back to the beginning, where Drew Barrymore saw her boyfriend, Stu. Was that his name? Was his name Stu? Man, maybe it wasn't. The whole thing is, Casey, that was her name. Tied to the chair. And suddenly, Sydney can't shoot, because knife to the throat, kicks the gun away. Has a gun with her, by the way. Can't quite see this. And then suddenly, the killer reveals it's Ethan Embry for some reason, but then we find out why. He drags out the body of Mark, and Mark starts wheezing. Mark is still alive despite being gutted multiple times. Whatever, it's okay. We get all this going, and the eventual reveal is it's Jessica. Jessica was a neighbor, but she was a super fan. That's why she was a neighbor. That's why she wanted Lucas to be obsessed, because she was obsessed with Sydney. And Sydney's books inspired her to kill her husband. That's why she doesn't want to talk about her past. And when Sydney didn't go to New York, she had to follow all the murders. And she got in an institution where she did. It's so stupid. I hate it. It's the way they explain this. It was so terrible. She did this, and that's why she got an associate and, Ethan Embry, and came up with the idea to do the AI Stu to mess with her. But it doesn't really go anywhere because nobody was fooled by any of it, but it is what it is. So basically, all the Joel McHale, by the way, has a knife and is subtly able to do this where he's able to free his daughter's legs because they're taped. She is able to headbutt, the up headbutt of Jessica. And Sydney pulls out a gun and shoots Ethan Embry in the head. And with all that makeup, she better have been a good shot. And then Jessica takes off, even though Jessica got bashed. And then Jessica and her fight. And Sydney and Jessica are fighting a little bit. And it looks like Jessica might get the advantage, but no, she gets stabbed. She does get an extension cord around Sydney's neck, but then Sydney just grabs the stuff and jam, all that and everything. And what's just so hilarious about this is it looks like, oh, shit, wait, Jessica might be able to still overpower, and then Tatum shoots her. And then, but she's not shot in the head. And then Jessica comes back, and the women just boom, 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 just tag her and take her face off and everything. Anna Camp has a beautiful face. Shouldn't have done that. But there we go. That's it. And literally, she is talking to Tatum about all the stuff. Like, oh, I didn't want this life for you. Well, that's not for you to decide. Actually, it was, but whatever. Oh, and Mindy and Chad are alive, because why the fuck not at this point? I mean, just I'm probably putting too much thought into this movie, but this was fucking terrible. This was objectively fucking terrible. Scream 7, that's it. Please be the end of the franchise. If they do Scream 8, I will watch it, but it probably won't be done for another couple years. And it's going to be a tough sell to get people back on board. Because this movie was really, really fucking bad. It gets an F. It is terrible. So agree, disagree what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin, and until we visit another franchise that hasn't been done to death again, happy trails, hello, Sydney, to you.